I remember when I was in school, whenever the teacher told us there was an assignment due at the end of the week, I always told myself I had all the time in the world to get it done. I never worried about it as I went about my day and only concentrated on my other classes. But when the teacher reminded us the day before our assignment was due, I suddenly received this horrible sense of motivation to get it done. And having that type of motivation sucked too, because it felt like I was placed into a Hunger Games situation and was expected to win with flying colors. And during every time I was placed in this Hunger game, I always thought the same thing, which was, why did I let myself do this in the last minute? If you have a bad habit of procrastinating, Pychyl says that you can easily solve the procrastination puzzle by following a few simple steps. But if you grew up your entire life doing things on the last minute, then it might be a little challenging. We tend to procrastinate when we want to learn how to stop procrastinating, or we tend to procrastinate on other important things when we're trying to learn how to stop procrastinating. It's quite ironic when you think about it. But it starts off by recognizing procrastination is a form of self-regulation failure. We have a natural tendency to pick up the activities that give us a feel-good emotion, and as a result, put off doing something that gives us the slightest negative feeling. Take me for example. The idea of working on my research paper seemed dull and boring, especially when I compare it to playing video games like Final Fantasy and Tekken. So I normally push aside my research project so I could get that temporary pleasure. But that eventually gave me a bigger problem in the future, which was always cramming the night before my work was due. Don't give in to feel-good emotions when you know you have something important to do. But I get it. Easier said than done. So what helps is when you find yourself about to push something aside, tell yourself, fine, I'll feel irritated to have to work out, but I'll do it anyway. Part of the reason we tend to easily give in to our dark procrastination habits is because we fully don't acknowledge the emotions we want to avoid. If you tell yourself that it's going to make you feel tired if you do your homework, but it has to be done anyway, you've already accepted the situation for what it is. And as a result, it makes it easier to do your homework and stick with it because your mind isn't telling you that it's going to be easy. The next is, don't do it tomorrow. Although your mind might tell you that it's okay to do something tomorrow because that's the day you'll feel motivated and happy, chances are you won't. The reality is that you'll tell yourself the same thing the next day and the next day up until the day that it has to be done. And like an ex-Transformer star once said, just do it! It's really tempting to follow the tomorrow rule, but the main message is just to get started now. Just take one small step at a time because once you get started, you'll naturally get into the flow to keep going. The next is, don't underestimate the Death Star. Star Wars is on my mind for some reason, so I'll stick with it. In the original Star Wars movie, everyone was scared of the Death Star. It was big, it was powerful, and it could blow up an entire planet with a single shot. No one wanted to mess with it, and it seemed impossible to defeat. But after the main characters looked at the situation for what it was and decided to fight back, they found it was possible to defeat. And I know you're not fighting a galactic battle, but the same principle still applies. People tend to overestimate just how difficult something is, and it's one of the main reasons people tend to avoid doing anything. They don't like the idea of working out because losing weight just seems impossible. They procrastinate on starting a business because they're afraid they don't have enough knowledge to get started. But genuinely speaking, anyone who starts a task will see that it wasn't as bad as they originally thought. I'm pretty sure, such as myself, you have an active imagination upon the worst. When you think about working out, you imagine it as some kind of one-on-one session with Goku, where you have to run 2-minute miles or pick up 1,000 pounds. But when you actually work out, it's like taking a walk in the park. Or it can actually be a walk in the park because that is exercising. The point is, the progress on our goals make us feel happier and more satisfied with ourselves. They help us continue working and give us those feel-good emotions the closer we get to finish our goals. That's why we usually wish we had started something the first day we had to do it, instead of pushing it back into the last minute. It's because we saw just how easy it was to do. The next is to develop a natural willpower for the unwanted. We only have so much willpower that can be used in a given day. When we decide to do one task that requires several hours of our attention and focus, we have less willpower to bring our attention to the next heavy task. It's why you can do one assignment happily, but the next dreadfully when it isn't even hard to do in the first place. I remember right before art class, I had to go to this one math class I never enjoyed. And our math teacher was never shy about giving us the hardest questions in history. Questions that would make even Stephen Hawking raise an eyebrow. So after we finished our class, my mind would always be mentally drained by the time I sat in our class. And the class was way easier, but by then a lot of my willpower was already drained. But our willpower is like a muscle. The more we exercise it, the stronger it gets. I learned the longer I stayed in my math class, the higher my willpower became to tolerate her impossible math problems before going to my next class. and it became easier to accept that we were going to be given 1,000 problems for homework that was due the next day. And the way that worked was because it became more of a habit than a chore. Without realizing it, we can easily accept any situation once we've done it so many times. It sucks working out early in the morning, but if you stick with the habit of doing it every day for 2 weeks, you'll suddenly find it easier to do and go about your day. Remember, habits are never easy to form on the first day. But there are a few important elements to keep in check in order to keep your willpower at maximum percentage when you start your day, which is you need the proper amount of sleep if you want more energy. You need to watch out for what you eat. The more junk food you eat, the more it affects your mind to pick up lazy habits. But in the end, accept and know your limitations. I already know you can't live a procrastination-free lifestyle. I'm procrastinating right now. I should be working out, but I decided to create this video instead because it sounded more relaxing. But what you should aim for is becoming aware of your procrastination habits, because that's the first step to changing it. Know what distracts you the most. Perhaps it's your phone, maybe it's social media, or maybe it's your pet. You know yourself better than anyone else on this planet, so acknowledge what distracts you the most and remain conscious of it so it gets easier to avoid. Accept that you'll have moments where you'll be working on something on the last minute. Accept that you'll have days where you'd rather work on B than A. Just don't beat yourself up with a bat because you broke your habit or you push off doing something to the last minute. Forgive yourself and repeat the process. It's like playing any video game. You just don't throw away a video game on your first game over. You keep playing until you beat it and throw a mini parade in your head because of what you accomplished. And that's Solving the Procrastination Puzzle by Timothy A. Pychyl.